Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. I'm joined today by my co-founder, Jason, Neil, Patrick, Harris, Johnson, Yellen. Did I get that right? Did I get all your names?
For the moment. I'm working on new ones every day.
Oh, do you have any you've been trying out? They were like, oh, I'm going to try this one, and like, fuck it. Nah, that won't
no, I would not reveal. No, sir. No, sir. These are all works in progress.
Okay.
Yes.
Listen, we have a lot to get to.
So much
to get to. Before we get to the things.
Every time. But, however, before. So last week, was it last week? No, the week before last. No, last week. What is time in Joshua Hatton's world?
Right? When did we bottle that Ben Nevis?
Anyway. Who knows, Joshua? Who knows?
I was on a podcast with our friends from Chi-Town Cigar Podcast, and they invited us on to basically highlight our latest cigar release, which is it's our collaboration. It's our fourth collaboration with Aganorsa Leaf, and it's a Nicaraguan cigar, and we sent them a Balcones cask. And they extra matured those cigars in that cask, and that was our heavily peated first fill bourbon single malt. Just gorgeous. There you go.
For the viewers, it's the one that I'm holding to the camera.
Ta-da!
Balcones 4, bottled summer of 2025. A beautiful 66.3% alcohol, and there is the flavometer that you were beginning to allude towards, Joshua.
Heavily peated. Is that 7 or 8 on the smoky chart?
I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the smoky.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
It felt like 12, but it's a 7 on the flavometer. Great cask.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic cask.
Long sold out.
Did wonders with that cigar. Long sold out. What's not sold out, however, is that cigar. I think there's still about 30 boxes left or so of that cigar out of
how
200.
many cigars in a box?
10 cigars in a box.
10 cigars in a box.
Yep, and you can get those through Two Guys Cigar. But please check them out. Check out the cigar. If you're a cigar smoker, please go and get them. But I bring this up because during the conversation, I'm smoking the cigar, I'm drinking the Balcones, and I decide to change it up a little bit.
Cool.
And I grab this bottle of Daluane. Right, here we go. That's our Daluane 13-year-old. Oh, look at that. There's a little stain for our viewers who can see that stain.
Oh, gosh. That drives me crazy. Whenever I see my children pouring whiskey, I'm like, no, not the label. Not the label.
Why are your children pouring whiskey, Jason?
They take care of their dad.
Oh, they take care of their dad. Okay, they're not just drinking whiskey. So I want to pour another whiskey, and, a good, rich, sherried whiskey goes nicely with this cigar. So I grab my bottle of Daluane, and I do what I normally do, which we learned from our friend David Stirk of Exclusive Malts, Creative Whiskey Company, is I give the bottle a shake. And they noticed that, and they paused, and they said, wait a second, I haven't seen anybody shake a bottle before. What are you doing with that? And so I shook it up again, and there it is. You can see all those beautiful bubbles in the bottle. And I told them what David Stirk told us, which is if you shake your bottle of whiskey and the bubbles are white, like that is, then there's no caramel coloring in your whiskey, right? However, if you shake your bottle of whiskey, and I brought my bottle of Loch Dew, which for the viewers and the viewers can't see that. I'm sorry, the viewers can see this, but the listeners cannot. But if you know Loch Dew, this is like the most caramel colored whiskey in the world. I'm going to show the viewers, if you shake this, the bubbles,
hey,
right? They're brown bubbles, but they dissipate quite quickly because this is diluted down to 40% alcohol. There's a lot of water in there, which makes the bubbles go away. Now, I bring this up because I noticed that there were some comments on there, which someone had said, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about because alcohol doesn't have bubbles. And they're right. If you're shaking pure alcohol or grain alcohol, which I have in my hand,
Everclear,
you're not going to get bubbles. But if you have lovely single cask strength, non-chill filtered, no caramel color added whiskey, 51.7% alcohol, all of those beautiful non-alcohol things, everything else that's in there that interacts with the alcohol gives you those bubbles. So there you go. I wanted to set the record straight.
I'm starting to think you did not pursue your PhD in science, but I could be wrong. All the other things, that's what your PhD was on? All the other things in the bottle of booze.
I am an all the other thingsologist.
That's what the certificate on your wall says.
It is, yeah. I mean, right? It's all those beautiful. I see. I still can't think of the words.
So you brought up Balcones a minute ago. I had the chance to show this off. So my part of the conversation here is when we selected which Balcones would come last summer. This was my ride or die Balcones, right? I just thought this was exceptional. Once people tasted it, they thought the same thing. As we mentioned previously, long sold out from the website. However, when we bottled this one, and we were both in agreement, great Balcones, 100% nation casks, 100% put it on the website.
Yep.
However, Mr. Hatton had his own ride or die Balcones, and everything else ologist that he is said, what if next year I get my turn? And so we are sitting here today very proudly announcing our next Balcones single cask for Single Cask Nation. And as we've done through this June and July series with our focus on our American releases, we're going to taste it. So we're going to taste it. Then we're going to relaunch the interview we conducted with Emma Crandall and Gabe RiCharde at Balcones a couple of years ago, back in 2024. Emma has since moved on from Balcones and is launching her own enterprise. And I'm sure at some point we'll have her on the podcast to discuss that next step for her. Very exciting. Some of the stuff. I'm being cagey because I don't know how much she has announced. So it's her news to share, not my news to share. But as it becomes widely known, we will bring her on to have a conversation with her. So we'll taste the new upcoming Single Cask Nation Balcones. Then we'll drop you off to their interview. However, our sixth and final reveal of our American casks will come after that interview. So please come back after the interview, hang around after the interview, and you'll hear us talk about the sixth and final release. But for the moment, should we pour some quote unquote lightly peated Balcones?
Let's do that. I'm going to share actually the picture of this bottle. There you go.
There we go.
Check that out.
Look at that. Well done, sir. Well done. 6 years old. So as we get into this, Joshua, the floor will be yours to let the viewers and the listeners know what it was that piqued your interest, intrigued you with this cask when I was off ride or die on the other.
I really appreciate the fact that you pointed out that I am a generous lover and that I let your cask come first.
Well, it helps to be the one in charge of the bottling plan. It's a spreadsheet Joshua's not allowed to touch.
Yeah, so this one, quite similar to my gateway whiskey, just evoked memories, right? It's a lightly peated Balcones. So compared to the 4-year-old that we released last year, which was heavily peated first fill bourbon, this is lightly peated new charred oak, right?
Yeah.
So you've got your two ends of the spectrum here, and that first nose, it was toffee apples up front, and I was just back at the country fair with my dad, right?
Oh, nice.
It was like instant. And my gateway whiskey was Lagavulin 16, and I was back to camping with my dad, right? And so it's that, like, that brought me in. So that was my initial yes. Coming back to it.
If I can add on to what you were saying a second ago as well with the new charred oak, for those keeping score at home, whereas you rightly say, Joshua, last year was first fill bourbon. This is a number 3 char barrique, and only 162 bottles from it. You see barrique, you expect more than that, but only 162, which I think we could be looking at hyper evaporation here.
It's got to be right in that Waco sun. But then, and the peat doesn't really present as anything aggressive in any way. It's soft. I'm getting like chocolate covered orange peels. I'm getting toffee. I'm even getting like the dirt ground at a fall festival, it's all of those things. It almost reminds me in a way of our very first Westland 2-year-old Oloroso cask, right? Where we got some of those candied nuts, albeit far less peat. That was a sherry cask, but it's that fairground treats, right?
And when you said you were getting the ground even at a fall gathering, I thought you were going to say getting the ground at a county fair. I thought that was the route you were going to go.
That's what I meant. Yeah, I meant county fair. But just like I couldn't come up with the other words, the every other thingologist, I just decided to throw in other words here.
And I don't know if we're leading the witness here, but certainly your comment earlier about the last Balcones cask going off to cigars, I get lit cigars on the nose of this Balcones.
Oh, isn't that nice?
That cask is really quite present, isn't it?
Yeah, what's the ABV on this one again? Do you recall?
So last year was 66.3. This year is 67 on the nose.
Oh my God.
And just like we said last year, it did not drink like 66.3. There's no way this drinks like 67. I actually did a double take on the strength of this one.
I'm jamming my nose directly into this, and it's got nasal texture for days, right? Just protecting you from that 67%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Rich, unctuous, dark chocolate on the palate there. Drying cigar ash. Continuation of a theme, right? Drying cigar ash on the palate.
Then you've got apple. The apple comes back. Maybe not the toffee, but some apple skin. Like the only good part of a red delicious apple is that sweet skin to it. Other than that, red delicious apple's pure shit. Anyway, sorry, go on.
I think as we're talking about the weight, and you were talking about the nasal texture here, I think that idea of smoked molasses on the nose carries through on the palate. And this is just textured all the way through. Pleasantly drying from the charred cask, at the sides of the tongue, inside the mouth, drying as it kind of goes into the finish, right? But also warm, right? That's where you take the temperature of this Balcones.
This is almost rum-like Demerara sugar rum.
That's well said.
Right?
That's well said. I tell you, man, you struggle with your words through the first, quarter of an hour here. That was a home run. Credit where credit's due.
All I need is a little whiskey in me.
You ever run into that at tastings or in the first dram? You're like, then you're like, first dram, okay, and then we move on.
100%.
Oh, Lordy. Oh, isn't there just such warmth from that? I love that smoked molasses, and I love that warmth happening. The grain is present, which is something we always look for. That's
One of the things I like about
bold, confident, self-assured Balcones.
And another thing about this that I quite like is it's still Balcones. Like I think of our 4-year-old and I think of the malt that was there, and I'm finding the connective tissue here, right? The Balcones DNA is so incredibly strong that it holds up. I mean, granted, they quite often release their whiskeys in new charred oak, and so you kind of expect it to have particular flavors. But I'm tasting the DNA here, just like I tasted it in first fill bourbon. So it's nice to see that through line between the two different casks.
Well, and I think partly what I was talking to Gabe and Emma about a couple of years ago was Balcones themselves were moving more into first fill and second fill bourbon barrels. And they were exploring what Balcones does in those style of casks. So for us to actually have a number 3 char here is really going back to those slightly older days of Balcones that was more cask influence, noticeable cask influence, but with the balance of the grain, but with the Balcones DNA coming through there. I'll also say this is our third Balcones in 3 summers, and we started with a Golden Promise Balcones.
That's right.
Then moved into the heavily peated in the fresh bourbon, and now we're moving into the lightly peated in the new charred oak. So we've definitely presented different sides of that distillery. And yet, I think to your point, distillery DNA runs through all 3 offerings. So if you were somebody who supported the Golden Promise, someone who supported the heavily peated from last year, points at side elbow, please go ahead and support this one this year. This is a big, heavy, robust oak spice hefty smoke.
And not a lot of bottles, you say. What was it, 160?
162.
162.
Yeah.
There you go. Good rich color to that one.
I think I finished it. I was looking for the other Balcones just off camera here. And I finished it. It's gone. And actually, this is what I have left of my bottle from last summer. So.
Oh, wow. That was the 5-year, was it 5 years old?
4.
That was the Golden Promise.
No. This is last year's.
Last year's. The Golden Promise one, though, that one was.
And that's the one I was looking for off camera.
Yeah, and that's the one I thought that you had found. I thought that it was a 5-year-old. Yeah, okay.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
And again, it's sold great guns as well. So always good to have Balcones on offer. Everyone gets a chance to grab a bottle. Oh, the 162 is a little low. Balcones. Should we go listen to Emma and Gabe from a couple of years ago and hear what they have to say about Balcones?
I loved that interview. I'm looking forward to listening to it again.
Yeah, brilliant. Please come back to us after the interview and we'll make our 6th and final reveal of our 6th American cask. Enjoy the interview with Emma and Gabe. I'm sitting here in Waco, Texas with Gabe and Emma of Balcones Distillery. Distillery or distilling?
Balcones Distilling, ING. It's a gerund.
That's what I hear.
And I'm Gabriel.
I'm Emma.
Well, thank you both for making time for me today. I had the pleasure of wandering the grounds with Alex and staying within the blue lines.
Of course.
I'm a very good boy, very good at doing what I'm told. We've had a couple of chats with Balcones on the podcast, as we call it around these parts. And one was a long time ago, season 1, with Zach Pilgrim, and then later with Winston Churchill Edwards. Mm-hmm. And so those were excellent conversations. But being at the distillery today is my first time out here and has really brought home the production, the maturation, the things you get up to over here. But I wanted to start with the fact that you're producing multiple styles here. There's a bourbon, there's a rye, there's a single malt, there's rum. Can you speak to what that's like day in, day out, like a bit about your process there?
I think probably the best way to start is from the beginning, as usual. But when we started, we got into this to make single malts. That was the love of the founders and the folks who originally got everything moving. Was they were enamored not with bourbons, not with ryes, not even with rums. They fell in love with single malts from the UK. Scottish single malts, and
that'll save me correcting you.
To be clear, but they were drinking Ardbeg and Talisker and a handful of malts over there that really were wowing them, and they'd been in beer for a long time in the craft brewing scene. And they got bit by the single malt bug. And so when we started, that was the original intention. But just as you would have it, because they were just slapping their savings together and doing a lot of stuff DIY and by hand, the mash tun that they bought was broken and it wasn't fully functional. So they wanted to start with single malt, but they couldn't. So they got their still first.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they got a still initially, and that's all they had. And so the first whiskey that we made, we cooked and fermented and did wash distillations and spirit distillations all in the first original vessel, a still from Portugal,
wow.
A Hoga still from Portugal. And so that's why, so really talk about your kind of tools determining your medium a little bit, that's just what they had. So that's what they did. But they also knew from the beginning that they weren't interested in just doing bourbon because they didn't put that into virgin oak. They put it into used oak because, it kind of been done before. I think they had an early sense of maybe what really intense virgin oak impact might do in the Texas climate. And we're like, okay, well, let's see what it's going to do in a used cask. And they started with the corn whiskey. And that was intentionally off the beaten path of like, everyone else is doing this. We want to kind of explore this other avenue.
Gotcha.
And it was a little bit in keeping with the idea of single grains from the old world tradition of like, oh yeah, these expressive grainy whiskeys that are showcasing the grain substrate and not overpowering it with oak.
Is it fair? We've got Gabe first and then maybe Emma. Is it fair to talk through what you do in a day-to-day and how the bourbon, the rye, and all the others fit into that day for you, like an average day?
I would say I'll bounce that over to Emma, but I'll start by saying, because you have one day and then you just mentioned 4 different mash bills,
Exactly,
so we're
exactly,
obviously
yeah,
not doing
exactly.
them one. At 8 a.m. we do the rye whiskey and then right around 11 we start doing the bourbon, it depends on our production cycle and what's going on. But yeah, I think from across the whole facility, I'll let Emma, you can kind of speak to, what running each of those looks like.
Yeah, as far as blending goes, we pretty much blend one core release at a time. We don't typically double up on what's on the counter unless there's an LTO out, a special release, or just a QC project. So we kind of get to focus all in on one of those things. Like we get to focus on single malt or on bourbon or on rye. And with our stills, we have 2 spirit stills. And so there are occasions where we're running the same mash bill on both still sets, but that's kind of where we see more of the overlap day to day, where we might have rye running on still set A and then corn or malt running on still set B.
Oh, interesting. Huh. And then you're just charting that fermentation through distillation and just the pipes connected to one go forth. Like just to my small brain, it sounds like you're not deep in the weeds, but there's an area of focus there that you got to be on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we definitely see ourselves exploring 2 traditions. Like we speak in-house as, okay, this is a single malt, and then we have American style whiskeys, corn, rye, and bourbon.
Yeah.
And we've been laying down a lot more single malt than we have of the American style stuff, I'd say the last 2 years.
Okay.
To kind of like, swell the war chest a little bit and just, and increase our stock and really, put our eggs in that basket. But what I think is important to state is that we do double pot batch distillation. So that's, we don't have a column. We wouldn't know what to do with one if you put it in front of us, except whack it with a hammer and probably break stuff. But we do pot distillation. So all of our, even though, we are running bourbon mash bills and we have run bourbon mash bills and put things into virgin oak, same with rye, whiskey. We're not doing a column. Everything kind of meets in the crucible of the double pot distillation. That being said, our malts are run through a mash tun, a mash lauter tun. So we're separating. Obviously, we're leaving grain behind and taking the sugary liquid and fermenting it off grain and distilling off grain. Whereas with our bourbon and rye and corn, we're using a cereal cooker. So we're using hammer mill, not a roller mill, and we're processing the grain, and then we're fermenting on grain and distilling on grain. So our wash stills are set up very uniquely with what's called an external reboiler, or maybe an external calendula in the cognac region, where it's a separate shell and tube vessel that the spirit is pumped into, and it's heated there so that if you scorch any of the organic matter, the on-grain substrate, you do it in the reboiler, not in the body of the still.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So
Okay.
we can do both. So we're doing both
Okay.
on-grain and off-grain, but everything is pot distilled. But we do have a cereal cooker for American styles and a mash lauter tun for the single malts.
In coming through the facility with Alex earlier and talking our ways, we got to the mash tun. We talked about 100% malted barley going into that mash tun. And he talked about 2 waters going through that, a first water and then a sparge water. Growing up in Scotland, learning the business in Scotland, you see a lot of 3 waters. And then sometimes the outlier in Scotland is the 4th water. Mm-hmm. And so what do you find the value in the 2 water system is? And is that all the way back to 2008?
I joined, which is probably important to say, I joined in 2016. So when I'm talking about stuff before my time, it's the royal we.
Gotcha.
It's not me there. Emma joined in
2021.
Okay.
So Emma joined in 2021.
Okay, so recent history.
Yeah, so recent history. So kind of like the not the old guard, not quite the old guard, the newer guard.
And then when was the building move?
So we bought this building in 2013, 2014, and we moved production into this facility in February of 2016.
Okay.
And then I joined December of 2016.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so I've only ever known just this facility. So I can't fully speak to how they were doing things back then. I don't think they were sparging. I think they were doing batch. They were doing adding large additions, batches of water, and not doing like our sparge is a continuous sparge. So yeah, we have a sparge ring in our mash tun, and we're doing one long continuous sparge.
Interesting.
Yeah, after our initial mash in. But speaking to the different levels of water, I'm familiar with some of the Scottish practices, and I think largely it's maybe related to efficiency. You can retain, you know, some of your last runnings and use that next, and hey, you get a little bit more fermentables, you know, that way. So I guess our facility isn't quite as chic, you know, and not quite as efficient in that regard. We have had to do it a few times where we maybe mashed in at too low of a temperature, so we had to draw some off and heat it up and then throw it back in. You know, that we did that once or twice, clogged a couple plated heat exchangers and pissed off our maintenance manager, you know. But yeah, the second water, when I first moved in here, we were just batch sparging. So we were just adding in water through the cereal smasher, and then we had the continuous sparge ring put in, and now that's honestly been great because it's improved our efficiency. It's like leveled the grain bed evenly, and I think allows for just like a more controlled process a little bit. Not necessarily for consistency, just for there's no reason to kind of bastardize your substrate and your raw ingredients with like a misshapen mash bed, you know, or you get a ton from one side of the mash tun, and then you leave a bunch of fermentable sugars on the other side of the mash tun. No reason to do that. So,
and then are you raking that periodically, or is that
man, I love the depth. It's good. It's good. It's great. It's lovely. So yeah, we were actually had a practice where we were raking pretty frequently Golden Promise, and Golden Promise is a very steely, sturdy malted barley, right? Perfect. So it has a lot of tenacity, and it can really withstand a lot. It's made. We get it from Simpson's. Pre this facility, we would get a lot of it from Fawcett. They do a lot of floor malted Golden Promise malted barley in the UK. Both Simpsons and Fawcett, or Simpsons owns Golden Promise, but Fawcett is for some reason is allowed. They may license it; they're allowed to use it. So those are the two malt houses that you can get Golden Promise from. But yeah, very steely, sturdy barley. And so we would do we do a really long rake on that. As we're matching in, we're continuously moving the rakes on the Golden Promise. The Texas malted barley we found is a lot more friable. So it's a lot more floury, a lot more friable. It's a little more highly modified, a little more mealy of a barley, right? And so because of that, we have had a lot of problems basically creating a paste over the false bottom and sealing in the false bottom and getting horrible runoff.
Understood.
And so it's actually recently our quality technician, Johnson Haygood, he explored just doing right at the end of your mash in, doing like a quick turn of the rakes, maybe like a full 360 degree turn just at the end to settle the bed. And that has actually worked wonders for running Texas malted barley. Because now we have we have open bed. We've settled the bed, so we have great, flow through the bed, but we haven't really smashed in any of the flour or kind of shredded any of the barley on the bottom of the false bottom. So yeah, but that was a lovely lesson for us, and just, the expectations that you have between two different regions that are producing barley and growing barley and different maltsters, and going, oh yeah, you can't apply the same process to every raw ingredient,
Have you experimented with other malted barleys?
What exactly do you mean?
So other strains, other varieties. So we've got the Golden Promise, we've got the Texas barley. Mm-hmm. Are there any others that you've played around with? The reason I'm asking, what I'm kind of chasing here, is this idea of a robust Golden Promise grain and then a more delicate Texas grain.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't had experience with other grains, and so I'm curious if you had that opportunity.
And I'm sorry, Emma, for taking all the barley history. I've been around the block a little bit. I'll take it. But yeah, so when we started, and this is a key maybe thing to help understand our interest in single malt and kind of why our, one of our flagship single malts, Texas One Single Malt, is made with Golden Promise. When we started producing single malts all the way back in 2010, I think when we released our first single malt, there was no brewing and distilling happening on Texas malted barley. There was no brewing grade or distilling grade Texas malted barley being grown in the state of Texas.
Gotcha.
It's all feed barley. It's all 6-row. It's feed barley. And it's been that way for a really long time because we released the first whiskey in Texas, possibly ever, definitely since Prohibition, but likely ever in Baby Blue. So there's no scene, there's no community or scene here when we got started, right? Mm-hmm. So we reached for Golden Promise because that was one of the ingredients of a lot of the single malts that we were drinking that we were really enjoying. So this kind of throwback heritage, delicious, scrumptious grain, barley. And so that's what we reached for. And then in 2014, 2016 window, a maltster was deciding to open up in the state of Texas by the name of Blacklands, and they were working with Texas A&M to bring in varieties from around the country and around the world and just try field test them at Texas A&M
nice.
to see, hey, which one of these barleys being grown in other regions around the country could work in Texas. That the initial variety they settled on was called Conlon.
Never heard that.
Yeah, and since then, that was 6 years ago, and then about maybe really quickly we moved to Genie, which is a more modern variety.
Familiar.
Low GN, very delicious. And the last 2 years we've been on Odyssey, which is a 0 GN. And so that's what we've been using predominantly. So if we're talking about variety, there's that. Now, Blackland's closed. So after a couple years, Blackland's closed. And now the maltsters we're working with are Tex Malt in Fort Worth and Maverick and Amarillo, where Maverick is a little smaller scale and Tex Malt is the biggest player in Texas malted barley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they both make excellent malts, and we really enjoy working with both of them. Our mash bills tend to be from them 100% of their pale, though we've tried 100% Pilsner malt, but tend to be 100% of their pale malt. So they're not their distiller's malt, but their brewer's pale malt.
Okay, understood.
Sorry. I'm not known for my brevity. I'm going to give the microphone to Emma, and I'll leave the room. I'm done, okay?
You'll be missed, Gabe. Please don't leave us.
Don't go.
So again, on my tour with Alex, I saw something absolutely remarkable that I don't get to see really ever, which is you've got a spirit still, and please correct me if I'm attributing it to the wrong still, but a spirit still that's got 4 turns of a coil above it. I think the line arm was discussed there. Mm-hmm. So a cyclical, would you say that?
Yeah.
Cyclical line arm with 4 turns on one of the spirit stills, but then 10 turns on the other spirit still. What are you, my mind is still blown. I'm just imagining it, seeing it again in my mind's eye. But what are you finding there? What's the purpose of having that in place?
Yeah, so I'll be similar to Gabe with using the Royal We. I joined December of 2021, so this is coming from all the stories and tours that I've taken. But when we moved into this facility, we were greatly increasing our size and our production capabilities. And so Forsyth actually custom made those stills for us. And correct me if I am wrong, Gabe, but the old building, the line arm traveled quite a distance, like across the building to get to the condensers. And so they kind of wanted to replicate this ratio of distance plus keeping our intense climate in mind and also maximizing this space. And we end up with these coiled line arms that allow the vapors to travel in the copper line arm longer, similar to how they did before. And so it also just helps us in general with this climate. We get more reflux. We get a little bit more of that like bright, snappy spirit on the still with the higher count of coils. It gets slightly more reflux on that still. So there have been times where we've geared certain spirit types to be distilled on certain spirit stills because we're going for a particular character. So on the one with more coils, we'll get that bright, snappier kind of characteristic, and then we get a little more body and oily character on the one with fewer coils.
Ah, okay. Okay. Would that ever divide by grain type that was being distilled?
Yeah, it definitely did. So, and we have preferences, and there are times where we distill the same thing on both of them, but we tend to prefer when we were doing bourbon, we preferred making it on the still with more coils, same with rye.
Okay.
And then the corn and the malt were typically geared more towards Spirit Still B with less coils. But as we keep increasing our single malt production, where there are many moments when we distill both stills with malt. And I'm personally finding that there's a really nice balance to that. You get more to play with and work with. And I'm starting to fall in love more and more with our GP on A. I think comes across really nicely and fruity. And so it's just a different kind of character that we're able to get. When I think of it as a blender, I just see like that's another tool that we'll have in the future to work with for texture and body and all of that.
Very nice. And so I love the way you just very comfortably slipped in GP on GP
Sorry.
on A, right?
Yeah.
And because I've been down seeing it, right? So it's the Golden Promise.
Yeah.
And then A is the 4-turn
It's the
line arm.
more coils.
A is the 10
the 10
turn. Okay, wow. Getting it in my head is so remarkable, and all that reflux that you're getting. So I think you've just perfectly opened the door for the next topic, which is blending. So just imagine I'm the family dog and I know nothing here. Just again, talk me through. What are you receiving? How are you? And you did that one earlier as well with your QC, right? Your quality control.
Yes.
And so talk me through that process. As you receive a sample, where does that go? What do you do with that?
Yeah, so when we are looking to start working on a blend, we will request samples of any barrel that could be a candidate for it. So depending on mash bill, barrel type, age, sometimes we'll add in barrel notes just to keep track of whether something's slated for an LTO or we want to wait on it a little longer. We take all these things into account and get this tranche of samples in, and each vial represents one barrel, and we just organize them out on the counter. If we have different mash bills pulled, we'll separate them by mash bill first, then typically by barrel profile. So we like to keep like groups and chunks of similar barrel profiles together, and then within that we'll start sorting them by age. And we keep things organized in a way where, like with malt, we sample every single individual cask. We do analysis on every cask. Whenever we're working on Texas 1 single malt, it's occasionally we'll be able to kind of lot together a group of casks that were from the same distillation day. If they went into the same barrel type, then we will lot them together in like a mock-up kind of group. But because we use so many used casks, you get a lot more variety between the maturate and what the flavor profile is going to be like. And so we'll take notes on the nose with the aromas, kind of like the intensity of it or the experience of it. We'll take notes on flavors, texture, finish. Again, kind of just the experience, like what is this, how does this feel, like what is this overall impression. And we'll also make note if we notice any flaws or anything that, you know, like maybe one cask isn't as far along as we thought it would be for its age and barrel profile, or if it has a little spicy, prickly texture, we make notes of those things as well. And then when we're done with all of our like grading and blending, we'll create work orders to help those casks and like mitigate those kind of, I hate saying flaws, but those, you know, those, deviations. And when we're blending, we do, we take all of the highest quality scores. So each barrel gets a quality score, and we take the top 2 scores generally and start kind of building a base from there. We'll do we pretend every barrel has the same amount of volume in it. So we'll do like an equal proportion from each barrel and start building groupings of barrel profiles, and then we'll start combining those together and just slowly build up to a base. And that base needs to build up to the flavor profile for the blend, but also to the volume that we're needing and wanting to create. And then when we get happy with where it's at, we'll send that list off of barrels to dump. And then we get a sample back of the actual base we're working with. And then we get a better idea of average volume per cask that we got and start working on adding minor additions to the blend until it's across the finish line and we approve it.
That's fascinating. Like, what a process to be going through. What kind of time frame are we talking from the first moment a sample comes across your desk to that blend being complete and heading out to market?
I feel like it could take 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That seems like it might be a reasonably quicker turnaround than I was imagining in my head. And then, are there any differences procedurally or just not really in terms of your expectations, but in working with them? How different is single malt from bourbon, from rye? Do you have to kind of recalibrate your own brain as you move between those grains?
There are moments where I feel like it comes easier for me. Like sometimes switching between mash bills is helpful because it gets me out of the weeds. Like if I'm working on malt for an extended period of time and I just stay in one space for too long, it almost feels like I stop noticing the subtleties, or I start noticing my notes are becoming more and more similar. And I'm like, okay, I need a break from this. And a lot of the time my break will look like, drinking some water, checking a few emails, just taking a break from doing sensory, literally. But other times, if we have other mash bills out on the counter, it can help to jump into a different world and just almost like shock the palate.
Yeah, that's well said.
And just try doing sensory on some corn whiskey or rye, and it's just a completely different flavor profile. It puts my brain in a different space and kind of forces me to focus again.
Do you ever have a moment when you move, and we don't need to name names of grains, we don't need to make them feel bad about themselves, but do you ever go from one grain to another grain and you think, oh, I kind of forgot what you were able to bring to the table, grain over here. Did you ever get a moment like that? I'm always giving corn a harder time than malted barley,
I think I definitely do. I see it happen with certain barrel profiles where maybe I underestimate them. And then I visit and they surprise me. Or I feel like I've learned a lot with my time at Balcones and just our different profiles and all that they can do for us. And I've been shocked multiple times by Gabe pointing, me bringing a blend sample to him and him giving feedback and just like, yeah, this one thing is missing. And where he sends me to find it is shocking. And I wouldn't have instinctively gone there necessarily.
I love that.
That's been a fun kind of pattern to learn in our warehouse.
Awesome. But your blending experience, Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the different whiskey types that we produce, I think what's kind of fun is we're doing something. We really do perceive that we're doing something a little bit different between the American style whiskeys and the single malts. I mean, it's kind of ironic. It's like you can kind of say, oh, like to your point, corn's a little ho-hum. I mean, you put it in tortillas for God's sake, But to corn's credit, you're not making tortillas out of malted barley, So there's a lot to corn just standing on its own. And I think there's so much within the substrate of our rye and corn whiskeys that we're trying to honor, right? I really do feel like our single malt is exemplified by this really complex melange of fruit and grain and honey and sun-kissed barrels. And there's a whole lot that goes into it. It's very complex. But in a way, to me, it kind of needs all that. It needs that fruit component to kind of help make the barley component make sense, the substrate component makes sense. So we're pushing that fruity character through esterification for the style of our fermentation, right? Whereas on rye and corn, and I'll go one step further. On the malts, we're dual pitching yeast. We're adding a malt whiskey strain and a ale yeast strain. And we're encouraging this complexity and a little more heavy alcohol character so that we have the cocktails to create esters and create fruit character, right? Whereas with the American whiskeys, we're pitching just the one malt whiskey yeast strain, which is a little bit more of a workhorse, producing a lot of alcohol, but also like a little less complexity because we're trying to expose the substrate. We're trying to, when you taste baby blue, we want you to taste corn, not tropical fruit, or peaches. But there's flutters of those in there, but we hope that you go, oh my God, it tastes like a tamale. Yeah, that's the idea. Like we worked really hard, and Texas farmers worked really hard growing this beautiful blue corn in Texas. Then we roasted it to give it a little additional oomph, a little additional butteriness, right? And that's what we want you to taste, not something else, not pineapple from an ester, And same with the rye too.
Okay,
we love our rye. It's not a spicy rye. It's not a classic rye. It's not a dill forward rye. It's very fruity and citrusy and bergamonty and coriander, like freshly ground coriander. It's beautiful.
Okay.
And we're not trying to smother that in esters. So it's a little bit of a stylistic choice, I think. I think it ends up making the corn and rye a little easier to blend because there's not quite as much going on. It's a little more singular. Yeah. Whereas the malts end up being incredibly complex. Not only are we looking for grain character and body and acid, we're also looking for tropical orchard and stone fruit.
Yeah.
And so it just ends up being, and then oak contribution too, and then virgin oak character and all the elements, And so those end up being the most fun blends, but also very taxing. Whereas I honestly feel like we could do a baby blue blend in our sleep a little bit because it's just like, it's a little easier to do.
So previously Emma opened the door perfectly for the next question. Now you've just opened the door perfectly for the next question, which is, traditionally we've talked about Balcones and really Texas single malt, this baking Texan sun and like the new charred oak. And I feel like there was an easy story to tell there. And I think, being guilty as a consumer, it became very easy to pigeonhole Balcones as a Texas single malt with this intense heat and new charred oak. Is there a more subtle story to be told there, for us as consumers to be heard there, as you've worked your way through the maturation program, the different casks that Emma's alluding to, the different qualities that these different casks are bringing to blending purposes? Have we fallen into a lazy trope in describing Texan maturation?
I love this question. It's great because there's so many ways we could address it. But yeah, I won't disparage us and I won't disparage anyone else. I think the really rewarding thing about what Emma and I and the rest of the staff gets to be a part of is that we're at the beginning of hopefully a 100, 200 year, 1,000 year whiskey tradition. And so when we started, we were working with what we knew, which was nothing. And everyone was poor and everyone had small production capacity. So yeah, putting something into a 30 gallon barrel or whatever you could afford, and then realizing, oh wow, like that barrel rapidly evaporates in this climate. And it's like a wine reduction on the stove. It actually makes something really interesting that you can't do in Minnesota or Ohio or Oregon or whatever. Yeah. And so, yeah, it is a unique character. Absolutely. And so I don't want to disparage anyone for doing that at the beginning because it was what we knew and we were pioneering, we were cutting our teeth, That being said, I think we've, us and other Texas producers, got known for some really bombastic, tannic, bold, powerful whiskeys, and we still release those, and we still enjoy those, definitely. But I think the next phase we're in, it's a little bit in maturity. You kind of start out a little bit more, not cognitively impaired, but you're a little bit more brash, and you're trying to find your style and you're trying to find your way, and you're in your red phase where everything's love and emotion and power. And then you reach this next level and you learn some lessons and you skin your knee and your heart's broken a little bit and you go, oh, like I wonder what subtlety and elegance, and I wonder what just a different relationship to where we are could reveal. And so that's kind of, I feel like the next era for us is going like, what, that is one way to use the Texas climate, but it's we don't want to pigeonhole it into a certain barrel size and a certain type of character when we're just starting. There's so much more to explore. And so in-house, I'll move into actual production stuff instead of philosophy or whatever.
I was loving it. You were waxing so
great.
poetic.
Yeah. Emma's rolling her eyes. She's like, this is the second time I've heard this today. But no, so in our maturation program, what we've done to kind of move ourselves more into the exploration of like subtlety and elegance and grace within the Texas climate is one, we don't want to, it's disingenuous to perceive the Texas climate and where we are as this like this malicious character that
Yeah,
we have to
right,
like, you know, like
right.
make sacrifices to, and does these really unpredictable, cruel things to our whiskey, you know, which I think is some of what the early days was like, is like, oh man, like, you know, that's a little bit like this boasting, like, oh, making it in Texas is so hard. But we're trying to partner with it and go, okay, so let's do lower entry proof. You know, we get a lot of evaporative loss here, but not if we drop the proof in barrel, because there's less of a difference to equilibrate. So lower entry proof in this climate is what we've explored. And over the years, we've probably dropped our average lower entry proof by at least 10 points. So from probably closer to 124, where everything was going in at almost max legal proof in the US for whiskey, down to closer to 114, 115.
Okay.
And a part of that, was recognizing that the Texas climate was, you know, sending our spirit deep into the barrel and extracting a lot from the cask, a lot of tannin, a lot of lactones in a very short amount of time. So by reducing the proof, you encourage it to pick up hemicellulose. You kind of soften some of the spice character that you're grabbing. You get a little more body and sugar, right? And you also just slow the time. It's like you'll still get to those high proofs and you'll still get spice, but you won't do it at year 2. You'll do it at year 4, 5, and 6, right? And then the other big thing that we've been working on the past 3.5 years now is larger format casks. So working with 500 liter casks and up, larger format casks, both new virgin oak, virgin American oak 500 liter casks, and also domestic wine puncheons, as well as a handful of foreign, some French 700 liter casks, and some sherry puncheons, a handful of sherry puncheons too. And just kind of seeing, okay, in these larger casks, we knew that in a 5-gallon barrel, we're losing 25% a year, right? And then in a standard size barrel, we lose, 10 to 8% a year, right? And now, so if you go from, 20 liters to 200 and you can reduce your evaporative loss by half, what happens if you go from 200 to 500? And what we found is a massive reduction in evaporative loss, from about 8% per year to closer to 4.5% per year.
Oh,
in
wow.
larger casks. So this is, again, it's all just doing the work of going, like, okay, the end of the story of the Texas climate isn't that if you put it in a tiny barrel, you'll make a powerful whiskey in 6 months. It's like, okay, well, where can we encourage ourselves to like be more nuanced and listen to what Texas wants to do, and just change our tools, and go, okay, we're gonna listen to you, and we're gonna say, you want a bigger barrel, and you'll and not even like you need a bigger barrel, but if we do that, you'll show us elegance and grace on a 10 to 12 year timeline instead of on a 2 to 4 year timeline. Yeah. I'm done.
Is there anything you would like to add to what he just said?
I feel like that's perfect. That's one of my favorite parts about being at Balcones is how intentional everything is, every decision is, and we really are at the very beginning of Texas history in the whiskey industry. We're babies compared to the rest of the world's whiskey industry.
Sure.
And to be a part of doing this exploration, and Gabe touched on seeing what Texas whiskey could look like in a more delicate, nuanced profile 10 to 12 years from now. I think people kind of throw out age statements as a very important feature on a label, and it's really not for the sake of letting a whiskey get older to be able to say it's older, but there's so much we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's possible if whiskey sits in a barrel in Texas for 12, 15 years, because it hasn't really, I haven't tasted it. I haven't seen that yet. And so to explore what our new make is capable of transitioning into when it has the chance to rest for that long, and what that would look like, I just think it's a very exciting place to be. And I hope that it's hard, and a lot of people are putting a lot of effort and hard work into it, and I hope that we keep doing it for hundreds of years.
No, so this is remarkable how wonderful a job each of you is doing opening the door to the next question. Because last year you had 15th anniversary. Congratulations on that front.
Thank
I
you.
know you're both working diligently in the blending space here. And so as you're guiding the next wave of Balcones, I know we're talking about larger casks. I know we're talking about using the environment perhaps in a different way. From a flavor profile, from a flavor standpoint, from a grain standpoint, what are you looking to work on, to implement, to add to that Balcones history over these next bunch of years? We'll keep that term nebulous.
Nebulous. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, So a big piece for us is the maturation side. And it's a holistic approach because it's easy to parse things out and say, well, what are you going to do with the barrels? It's like, well, we also recognize that if we put something in a barrel for 12 years, we have to distill it differently because we need a different cocktail of compounds at the beginning to make sure that we have solvents and we have the character that we might want at the end, which means that it's not going to taste the way that we're used to it tasting, as new make or as 1, 2, and 3-year-old. So yeah, that front of just peering through time at what our Texas single malt distillate could do in barrel is a big piece of what we're looking forward to. And then we've increased a lot the amount of Texas malted barley that we're laying down. So we're trying to dig more deeply into the state and build relationships across the state, and work with our maltsters, work with grain brokers, work with farmers to help understand what's possible here, different regions. Most of the barleys come from the high plains. We'd love to get some out of the hill country. We'd love to get some even closer. The high plains is 8-9 hours away.
Oh my goodness.
So what if we could get barley, within an hour or 2 hours from here? It would be really interesting to see. So that's one thrust. And I think one of the big things too for us is, you mentioned the heat of the climate, which, affects maturation, but also we do long, and we didn't touch on this yet. We do long open fermentation. So we do long acidic 7-day fermentations on our malt. We encourage microflora. We encourage the Texas environment and critters to kind of take hold and help inoculate and contribute to what we're doing. And so that means that we get slightly different character throughout the year, depending on what we're running, right? Depending on what's in the air, right? And so in the winter, maybe when the air is a little deader and there's not as much activity in the air, we'll produce a different malt than in the summer where there's a lot of dust blowing around and there's a lot of warmth and there's a lot of LABs and other bacteria and critters in the air. And so, eventually we'd love to get to a point where we could quiet ourselves enough and still ourselves enough to actually be able to listen and hear that and pick up on those subtleties and be able to tell that story for our location, our home in Waco. So that's going to be I think exciting for us. We're very there's a lot happening on the barley front and other parts of the country, and a lot of people are experimenting and doing a lot of different things. I think for us, we see the barley side has been important, but we've restricted our medium a little bit because we don't do these big multi-barley mash bills, multi-malt mash bills where we don't have 5 different types of barley. We just do the one. And we've pretty much done that across the whole portfolio except for our bourbon mash bills for the most part. It's 100% roasted blue corn. It's 100% pale malt. It's 100% Golden Promise. It's not 85% Golden Promise and 1% chocolate and 10% Vienna or whatever. And we've restricted ourselves to just kind of okay, we're using this size brush for this, instead of the teeny little brush isn't doing all these little things. Is we've kind of narrowed our focus so that it's more like vintage. It's more the climate and the maltster and the substrate having its voice and not all these options in the kiln. It's more okay, no, this is what you're getting. Yeah. You're tasting the place, not a decision necessarily that a human made.
So I can't not ask you what I'm about to ask you, which is so many distillers, and certainly in Scotland, we hear the C word of consistency. And here you are sitting here talking about seasonal variants, but those samples, we've discussed with you and Emma, those samples are going to come to your desk and you're going to make a blend out of that. But now you're talking about vintage. Is there a way forward that does become vintage for Balcones, or will it be spoken about more kind of off the record? If you're at a tasting and you've got someone's attention for a longer period of time, what does that story look like going forward for you, and are you grappling with consistency?
I think there will be expressions in the future that emphasize vintage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Intentionally, yeah. And in regards to consistency, that Emma and Alex, who are in the room, have heard me say this before, and so feel free to roll your eyes. But yeah, we don't fetishize certainty. So we're not interested in consistency. We're not interested in making, a whiskey that tastes the same all the time, because it's really an impossibility. And well, one, we're not interested in it, but, and two, in Texas it's hard, and that's part of the cadence that we're learning with our climate, is that's not necessarily what Texas wants to give us. It's going to change. And, to some extent, obviously, Emma is a diligent blender, and we're blending together, and we're, fine-tuning, for example, lineage. We're going to, let's get as much tropical fruit as should be in lineage. But often we can't do it. Sometimes we can't, and that's because of the critters. That's because of the microflora and the Texas contribution and that fermentation character that is out of our control, and that's intentional. And so all of our bottles are batched. So you can look on the back and go, oh, that's lineage 21-1 or 22-1. The first lineage blend that Emma jumped in on when she first started, she blended it a little differently than I would. Yeah. We did it together, but it got down to the final decision, and she's like, I really like this one. I was like, well, I would do this one, but let's go with that one, And it's a little more fruity, it's a little brighter, it's a little more effervescent. It's great. And that's just all part of it, that each distiller is going to do things a little differently. One, Josh had salsa verde tacos that morning, and so his head cut is a little less conservative than maybe it would be, because his palate is a little maybe fatigued in a way that it wasn't the day before, and so it's going to be different. That's all part of it. That's the human component to this. Yeah. That is our contribution to what Texas is contributing. So it's this mix of both of those things, and we don't have no intention of acting like we're producing something that's the same all the time. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a celebration of people, a celebration of environment, a celebration of location. Like that sounds wonderful, and a wonderful thing to communicate to a consumer.
Yeah, it can be tricky to take because and Jared has espoused this before, and it's totally valid. Is that within a brand, you do need this idea of what the brand is, and people want familiarity. Yep. That's kind of why they keep coming back. Yep. They go, oh, that's safe. Oh, I love that expression. That's the expression that I drank with my dad before he died. And it's like, well, we don't want to go so far away from this thing that we released into the world that now is a part of other people's lives that they can't recognize it anymore. Yeah. But we're also not trying to do it in such a way where it's the same for 10 years. And you get a bottle of that, like it's a cheeseburger at McDonald's, where it's like, I know it's going to have the exact number of onions and the exact grams of ketchup every time. It's like, we're not interested in that. But to honor what we've done before, but to allow it to have its own life.
Jason, you, sir, have some explaining to do to our viewers.
I knew you were going to go. What's that explaining to do come from?
It comes from I Love Lucy. 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 Yeah. You've got some explaining to do. Yeah.
Timely reference for the kids.
I get it.
Yes. So sharp-eyed viewers can see that I have changed locations. If you're on the audio only, there's no point to tell you any of this. But if you are watching along, just like our interview a couple of weeks ago with Alistair over at Boulder Spirits, we had difficulties that day with Colorado afternoon electric storms. And I told him, I totally understood. I used to live there. I know exactly what it's like. We also have them at this time of year in Virginia. So we just had an electrical storm pass over. It's still kind of active. I abandoned my garden office. I'm in the house. This is my wife's study, hence the rocking chair, which is really quite a nice addition. The plant over my shoulder, and then just behind my head, in my office, you see Lagavulin as painted by my mum. That's just over my shoulder in the office. Right now, that's the first house Tamara and I purchased in Pullman, Washington, as painted by my mum. So
I remember
that's just over my shoulder behind my head. So there you go, a little relocation just to bring the viewers up to speed. Audio listeners, fret not. Joshua, There was a point of business from you also.
There was. So listeners and viewers may recall that on the outset of this episode, when I was doing the shake it till you make it test with the bubbles, I had mentioned about the everything else that was in a bottle, because I am the world's foremost everything elseologist. And the reason why I became the world's foremost everything elseologist is I couldn't think of the word that was in a bottle aside from the alcohol. And what that is, Jason and listeners and viewers, is impurities. It's impurities.
I'm sitting back in the rocker while I get an education.
So here's what's going on. And impurity sounds like an awful word, right? That you're drinking impurities. But here's something that I quite love. Last year when I took the Nolan group to Scotland, I'm going to try to do all this. Michael Nolan, Jam, Dan Gryson, Joel, Bruce, a few other people.
He's going to have to take off his socks in a minute.
So we went to Scotland and we visited a number of distilleries.
Okay.
And one of the people who'd taken us through the distillery as we were getting to the stills had talked about the fact that double distillation does a great job of allowing impurities to get through into the cask. And that's where your flavor is. And when you get into triple distillation, this is why triple distilled spirits, like your Auchentoshan maybe in Scotland, or Irish whiskey, is a bit lighter in flavor. And then you get into vodka and you're 5 times distilled, 6 times, 7 times, fucking 12 times distilled with some of these. And then it's like this, right? You've got no scent, you've got no flavor. You've distilled out all of
clear that Joshua's holding
this.
to the
Oh yeah, sorry, listeners. The bottle of Everclear. So the point was, those quote unquote impurities are flavor. They're delivering flavor. That's what's left over from the grain that then interacts with the cask. So when I was shaking my bottle of Del Ewing, you've got the cask particulates, you got the color that lent itself from the cask, right? You've got the grain, you've got the yeast that lent itself to the whole process. That's impurities, baby. So there you go.
I can't
shaky,
wait
shaky,
for a distiller
shaky.
to write in and correct all of this. we have a lengthy tome from Skinny about sense of place and terroir. And so any distiller listening to this, Joshua's...
A distiller told me this. Well, the person taking us on tour told me this. But I have heard, no, listen, Jason, I have heard this before, and I would love to hear from Skinny. Skinny, right in.
Skinny,
it's impurities.
Your only hope. We will also accept missives from any other distillers out there. So you came back after the interview, not for a couple of points of business from us two jamokes. You came back for the 6th and final reveal.
This is true.
Which is super exciting, super duper exciting. So we've had Clear Creek.
Oh, hold on. We've had Clear Creek
with a tasting. We have had Highwire announced with a tasting. We have had Boulder Spirits, as we mentioned a moment ago, the interview with Alistair, and a tasting. We have had Rocktown and a tasting along the way that was quite tasty. I need to scroll down to see where I can't see the other photo. Have I covered 4?
Yeah.
Then
what did we taste before the interview? Balcones.
Which, the way today's recording has gone, feels like about 4 hours ago. And then there was back to bourbon, back to this kind of color. This is Smooth Ambler.
I get that.
9 years old, distilled in 2016, Halloween, 10/31, October 31. A very, very exciting time. So really, really cool, really fun. We've been looking to collaborate with Smooth Ambler for a long time, and this is our first.
Yep. This is our first, and this is we've been wanting to do it a long time. Number 4 char, if memory serves, on this one.
Absolutely, on that label, yeah.
And this is, am I correct in remembering this is a high rye on this one?
Correct. Yeah. High rye bourbon. 63.5% alcohol on this one.
Yeah.
And just under 200 bottles.
Okay. Yeah, high rye, for me, and I think for you too, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. But when I think of some of my favorite bourbons, they've always been high rye. When I think of my favorite Four Roses recipes, they have more rye in them. And it's that rye spice tends to frame some of the sweetness that bourbon brings out. So,
yeah. And then at the same time, they'll think about the high wire conversation we had around the Jimmy Red. And the type of spice, the type of cinnamon that brought.
Good point.
And then think about the conversation around the Rocktown, where that is a very crushable bourbon. So much to offer in that. Really, really delicious.
Fair.
So 3 really good bourbons out of the 6 Americans going on sale. 2 others are single malts, and then 1 is the spirit from whiskey from a what do we call it? It's a fancy. Bring up the label again, Joshua.
Yep. Hold on one second.
Clear Creek. Bring up the Clear Creek.
Oh, the Clear Creek. Oh, sorry, that one. Yep. Whiskey distilled from a barley mash.
There we go.
Yeah,
and then in the Caitlin episode, we talked about the Bridgeport connection over in Portland, Oregon, and what that meant for that distillation. So really exciting little cask for lovers of light whiskey. And as we've mentioned, our first Chicago Jubilee bottling. But back to the Smooth Ambler in front of us. Can't get away from cherry wax lips, which is a note that I love writing. I also love eating cherry wax lips.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get over that hump, right? Where it's crumbly at first, and then it gets very good.
Oh, British ones don't crumble. They're much kind of like waxier. Like they've definitely got they're waxy. I'm trying to re-describe waxy to you.
Everything elseologist? Was it? Are you?
they're just so firm to get your teeth into. Like they're really good.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the American ones start off very crumbly, and then as you're chewing it, because your mouth is warm, the wax starts to melt a little bit, and then it turns into just a nice flavorful cherry wax to chew.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been years, but yeah.
A lot of grain on this as well: corn, wheat germ, bran, oats, in the form of bran flakes and toasted oats.
The toasted oats is spot on. I love this, and I love that it's big and cinnamony, right? Man,
yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
a little bit of
great.
incense,
And this
just
is
for something a little exotic, something a little interesting around the edges.
Thank you, and that's what I was going to say. So this is their own distillate, if I'm not mistaken, and right, yeah. Because early on, they were sourcing, and they never hid any of that at all.
No, this is 100% Smooth Ambler.
And I like that sometimes you get that incensey note from their own distillate, and it comes through nice and shiny right here.
This continues with the cherry wax lips in the palate for me, and then a little bit of turmeric and ginger. Oh my gosh.
That texture. Oh, so first off, the texture is great. I remember when we first wrote the notes, we got this sort of like green banana on the nose, but it came through on the palate for me. It's like that first note on the palate for me is some green banana. And then you get that oak, very oaky, oak spice, honeycomb, get some cracked pepper, some ginger.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
for me, it's that transition from the nose having the cinnamon, like a big red chewing gum, to the palate having the turmeric and the ground ginger, but also the cracked black pepper. Like those two layers, those two levels of the spice, I really like. Yeah, this. What I also like is this is still not like the Jimmy Red, which really runs with the cinnamon, and not like the Rocktown either. Like this is unto itself.
Yeah, because this is right that Jimmy Red or High Wire is deeper and earthier, and this has a lighter quality to it. There's a brightness to it, which is really nice.
That's so funny. I just took another sip, and it's cherry wax lips. It just kind of resets the palate each time. The other thing I was saying, as we're talking through the spice here, it's still juicy right down the middle of the palate. Like that is, it's unctuous, and it's rich, and it's juicy.
Right. Yep.
Oh,
yeah,
and
it's
the oak is
real
present.
juicy.
The distillate is present.
It's this like the juiciness is there, and then as it transitions, I get some crystallized ginger. It's really nice. Some ginger powder, but then it turns into crystallized ginger for me.
A note on the finish that for me is always a Joshua Hatton. Cola syrup. That's a you. That's a you note right there.
That isn't me. I love that cola syrup.
You getting it?
I am. Yeah, I love that you get it too.
Yeah,
man.
And even on the finish, it's still the cherry wax lips. It's definitely that cola syrup. The cracked pepper from the palate still there on the finish, and then the char, the cask. The cask is present, nose, palate, finish. And number 4 char, to reiterate what you had said earlier.
And that's, one of the things that surprises me with this one, the fact that it is a number 4 char, but you've got so many grain driven notes that the number 4 char isn't really hiding, right? We led with bran flakes and toasted oats. And I think you said wheat germ, right? I think some of the honeycomb is a grain driven note, right? Some of the orangey kind of notes can be grain driven, especially rye, right? Citrusy notes can be rye driven. But you've got that number 4 char cask that's just playing so nicely with this spirit.
I tell you what, it just gave me in the transition from palate to finish is cherry coke.
I thought you were going to say a little
cherry coke.
Cherry coke. Oh, I like that.
That really lands the plane.
Oh, yeah. The cherry wax lips, the cola syrup, cherry coke right there.
That really comes through.
Love that.
All right, there you go. That's all 6 in the release. We've got a date for that to be announced. It will be in the last kick of the ball in July here. And we'll get those shipping out for you. I have to say this, Joshua. The last couple of months, like this June, July focus, kicking it off with Amanda from VDC, Virginia Distillery Company, then going into things like Caitlin conversation around the Clear Creek. Oh my gosh! Now I've led myself into a Joshua Hatton place. Right, but Scott at High Wire, Alistair at Boulder. Rocktown. Why am I blanking on a name again? I blanked on Scott previously.
2 first names.
Go for it.
Phil Brandon.
And then revisiting the Gabe and Emma, and then closing out with Smooth Ambler. just a really good couple of months of focusing on this. So really enjoyed that. In the next episode, listen out for an extra where we'll speak with another good, proud nation supporter. Really looking forward to sharing that interview with the listeners and the viewers of One Nation Under Whiskey, whether it's the full form interview version or the extra version. That's going to be good to share. While we're on that subject, should we suggest that people subscribe if they're here on the YouTube? There we go. Subscribe, click the bell, ring the bell, tickle the bell. And then for the podcast audio experience, make sure, as you've already done, you tune in through your favorite podcast/podcast provider. We know the listeners are still out there. We're not fully focused on the viewers. We have love in our hearts for viewers and listeners. So thank you all so much. 6 American whiskies to be released at the end of the month, the month being July 2026. Last words from Joshua, and then we'll get out of here.
I love that we have this focus on American whiskeys in July. And we get that question all the time. June and July, right? Sorry, June and July. We get that question all the time whenever we do tastings. You guys going to do some more American whiskeys? Well, the fact of the matter is, yes, we love our American whiskeys, and we're going to try to focus and add in some more when and where we can.
Absolutely.
No promises on what that will look like, but we want to do it because we love the spirits, right? We make some really good shit here. And we've got 6 good examples to show you said really good shit.
Yeah, really 6 fun stories.
Yeah.
Fun casks, fun pours, things you'll want to share with your friends, things you want to buy in multiples. A lot of love to go around. So good. Well said, Mr. Everythingologist. This has been real, and we have successfully completed the recording.
Ta-da! Until next time, listeners, viewers, good chance to everybody. Bon voyage. Cheers.